Man, oh man, with it being such a monumental episode, we just got to look back. We got to reminisce. We got to think about where we come from and where we are now. And man, oh man, I think it's been quite a journey, quite an experience, but definitely one that I love going back to and thinking about every once in a while, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, man. Building up for this show, we both kind of went back and we're listening to old episodes and just reminiscing about all of the stuff. And yeah, bro, like it was a rough ride in the beginning. You don't even really realize it until you go back and listen, and you're like, "What? How did we ever get out of year one?" It was so just crazy, but the growth and the just like the immense shift in the direction of the show and just like all the kind of it's been really fun to go back and try to get ready for this show and so that we can talk about it because man, what a ride these 249 episodes were, right?
Yeah, quite an experience, quite an experience. We're going to deep dive into all of that. Oh my goodness, I'm super excited to get a little crazy. Hello, everyone. So, you want to start a podcast but have no idea where to start? Well, Crazy Ant Media is here to help you. We want to assist you finding your VFE. What's VFE, you ask? Well, that is your voice, your format, and your equipment. These are the three biggest essentials you need to start your podcast. All those hours watching nonstop YouTube videos or all those random website links, those are done. Just hop on a Zoom call with us and we'll talk about everything you need to know to create your own podcast and find your voice. Plus, we will send you home with a 12-page packet over everything we just discussed. It's very in-depth. It is definitely a must-need while trying to start your first podcast. Contact us at info@crazyantmedia.com today so that you can start finding your podcast voice for tomorrow. What's up, guys? Oh my goodness. Welcome back to ITCAF Podcast. And man, oh man, we're so excited about this reminiscent episode that we forgot to tease our guest. That's right, Dannie McCallum coming on the show and talking all about Echo. Man, oh man, she is like the high priestess. So
Oh
we're super
yes.
excited to have her on the podcast.
Couldn't have been a better guest to plan out for the 250th episode, right? Just a pure gem to talk to. She was amazing, and it's a perfect fit for the big milestone episode, I think.
I completely agree. I completely agree. She was such an amazing individual. And like you said, for the big 250th, there's no one else that we would rather have than someone so epic and so humble as like her. I feel like, she's spot on for the episode. Spot
For
on for the
sure.
episode. But you guys know your host with the most, myself, JLo Fantastic, and the one and only Mouth.
What's up?
Oh boy, like we teased a little bit earlier in the show open, we are going to be reminiscing all about ITCAF podcasts, all these 6 to 7 years. Man, oh man, absolutely wild. Going back, like you said, doing our research and listening to old episodes, it's definitely it's a blessing to know how far we have come. Let's put it that way. Let's put it that way. But before jumping into all of the reminiscing, we have to be sure to say, be sure to head over and leave a rating on this podcast. Comment below and tell us what you actually think about this show. Because leaving a rating on the podcast actually helps this show get seen by more people who enjoy entertainment news, plus those who love the entertainment industry and who are trying to break into the entertainment industry. That's what we are all about, man. Lending the helping hand here at Crazy Ant Media. And then, of course, be sure to head over to our website, www.crazyantmedia.com, where you can start rocking the latest and greatest Crazy Ant Media gear. I just got some new stuff in today. So
Oh
this is really
yeah.
awesome. Look at that. Filmmaker hat. So that is
Nice.
pretty badass.
That is
And then
badass.
if you are a podcaster, I just got in this one as well. So be sure to check out our merchandise right now at crazyantmedia.com, where you can start rocking the latest, greatest Crazy Ant Media gear. And you have to follow us at Crazy Ant Media and at ITCAF Podcast to know when we have promotional sales. So be sure to check all of that out. But
Yes.
man, oh man, like we've been saying, the big 250th episode. We're going to reminisce about past episodes of the past 7 years, and we're going to talk about our favorite moments, our favorite interviews, guests, top five segments, all of the jazz, man. But I mean,
All of that stuff.
it's crazy because we started off, like we've talked about before and mentioned a little bit, we started off as an internet radio show and recorded in the back of our local McAllister's. I don't know
Yeah.
if you remember, but I'm sure you do. The first time we got the offer to even start this thing from that show with those guys,
Yep.
we were at like a local talent show basically for the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Like
Yep.
we were at one of the big casinos and we got a direct message from that show with those guys. And because we went to the talent show to see if we wanted to recruit talent for our projects that we were working in and make connections, network, all that big stuff, because that is very important in the entertainment industry to make sure you network. And then we got the DM, and man, we were like, should we do this? Should we not? But
Yeah.
then after further consideration, we jumped full in, man.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you guys know, maybe you don't know, maybe you're new listeners, new watchers, you don't know. We are a film production company, and so the whole purpose of starting this show way back in the day as an internet radio show was strictly to promote ourselves, to give some publicity and get our name out there for our film company. Our initial guests were actors that we were trying to have on our project, a film that we were working on. We had really no intention of having it go any sort of a long-term thing. It was like, hey, this is a really cool way to promote our name and get it out there, give a little bit of exposure to these actors. Cool. And it started because the reason they direct messaged us is because they had us on their show to talk about our film that we were working on, and then it went over so well, I guess they decided, hey, maybe we should get these guys on our radio network or something. But like, honestly, I remember us talking about it and we were like, oh yeah, maybe we'll do it for like a month, maybe 2 months. We'll just get the name out there and we'll interview all the stars and that'll be that. And here we are, 6 full years in, starting our 7th year, and like, what? I just, when I think back about it, and first of all, guys, we had nowhere to do it. We were like, what? And the first thing was, we don't even have equipment. Like, how are we supposed to do this? Like, we don't
None.
even know. So thankfully, we had a guy that I had worked with at the television station before Logan even was a part of the television station or anything, and he helped me work on another film that I did, and he did sound, and he had sound equipment, so it was just a random, hey, Chris Carmen, aka Sound Man, you still got that board? Because we're gonna do this show and we need somebody. And thankfully, huge shout out to Chris Carmen. He was all on board. He's like, yeah, man, I got the mixer, I got these mics. How many do you need? Let's do it. And so I just want to give that shout out, because without that show for those guys, or with that show with those guys and Chris Carmen, we wouldn't be here. Because we would have never had the platform to launch, and we would have never had the guy to get us up on the air on the radio. So, huge shout out to both of those. That it's just an amazing thing. And then, do you remember like when we were like, okay, so now we have sound, now we have all this stuff. Like, where are we gonna do it? Because nobody wanted to do it at their house. Nobody's like, no, I don't want to
True.
record at my house. I don't want to. No, we got people over there, blah blah. And so. We were like, where are we going to do this? And I don't even know. I don't even remember. Maybe you do. I don't even remember how we decided to even check with McAllister's. I mean, I know we ate there a lot and everything, but I just don't know how we came up with the idea. Let's ask if we can use that back room or whatever. The only thing I do remember is that they weren't exactly open for it. The only way initially that they agreed to it is we had to buy food afterwards. We had to eat there afterwards, and then they were kind of cool with it. But do you even remember, like, how did we come up with the idea for McAllister's? I don't even remember.
Well, I mean, we had our weekly meetings there before the podcast
Yeah,
even became a thing.
yeah,
So they knew who we were. We had a regular waitress who always like would ask us questions like what were we doing, that type of
that's
stuff.
true.
And I remember that. And then we had a couple people who were affiliated with the company who, yeah, did eat there like every time we had a meeting. And I think I believe they had the initial conversation with them and then brought it up. But yeah, I mean, I remember some of the ideas were like at the library, the local library, because that's where we shot, is it worth it for
Yep.
our first couple times? And yeah, I mean, everybody was just kind of like, but then it did become a thing where we were either supposed to buy food before renting out the space, at least $50 worth, or get food afterwards. And then it got to the point where like the managers at that local McAllister's just liked us so much that every once in a while we wouldn't buy food and they'd be completely fine with it. And the room would be reserved for us anyway. So, I mean, that's why we always tell people just be good people, good human beings, and then good things will happen to you.
That's
But
right.
yeah, that was a very interesting experience, man. Those acoustics were rough because like it's a big conference room. Like, I mean, we used to shoot it on a completely different camera that like had to be all the way in the corner and then shoot towards us like, and at the beginning it was 8 of us, 8 individuals on one podcast.
Yeah.
That is absolutely insane.
A half hour show. It wasn't like
Yeah.
it is now. So there were 8 of us trying to talk in a half hour show, and we were still trying to fit in all of our segments. We had more segments. We did a film word of the day. We had music. We talked about the music industry. There was so much stuff that these 8 people were trying to fit into a half hour that we were very locked to. We weren't loose like we are now. We didn't just let the conversation flow. We were locked to a rundown, and each person had a segment. Each person had a question. Each person. It was so just crazy. Now everybody's doing Zoom kind of stuff. It was episode 171 in
Mm.
2021. Dominic Burgess was our very first Zoom guest, where we had them on camera for the first time, being able to see the guests. And that was fun. That was interesting because we didn't know how that was going to play out. We didn't know how that was going to be like, wait a minute, is this going to work? How do we edit this? How do we fit this in? Because it's not live. We're not doing it live in the show. We're pre-recording it. And I mean, that was interesting because we used to, back in the day, the interviews were live during the show. And that was another thing, right? We had to kind of like stay on very much track on our industry news because we had to be out hard at a certain time in time for the interview to start because they were calling in. And so that was very like, we couldn't give much dialogue. We couldn't do much talking because it was just like, here's the headline, here's the story, go, because such and such is calling in 4 minutes and we need to get through it. That was nuts, bro.
Yeah, it really was because I mean, they literally it how you're supposed to do it. There's supposed to be a USB or a male adapter to where you plug it into your phone and then you record it through the software. Well, how we did it was we took just another microphone and put it on speaker and put it up against the speaker, and that's how we recorded the guest audio. So it was a very hustle way to do it, man. I mean, it was definitely one of those things where we you could tell in those early interviews we were talking a little bit louder, kind of maybe even like yelling a little bit because we were hoping that the guest could hear us on the phone where it was like 5 feet, 10 feet away. So yeah, that
That's
was
so true.
pretty funny. Like that, like
And it was so inconsistent because
boy.
a couple of us had stands, but some of us were holding it handheld. So there was no consistency with the levels because some people were right here and some people were talking into the mic on a stand.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, it was. I felt bad for Chris because he was trying to ride those levels and everybody was like all over the fucking place.
everywhere.
In the editing, we had to go back and do so much adjustment with the levels in the editing. It was just unreal. But we did it. We got through it. We still. It was just, yeah, man. I'm so glad you brought that up because yeah, the microphone next to the phone, bro.
Yeah. But I mean, it is crazy because like because we did start recording videos at McAllister's, and then we transitioned to the apartment, and then we transitioned to in front of the desk look. But we were very inconsistent. We've talked about that a lot with YouTube. We were very inconsistent with the videos for YouTube.
Yeah.
We didn't ever really start taking that seriously until 2020. That's why that's a monumental thing.
Yep.
But yeah, because we did record our episodes in McAllister's, even though like they couldn't see who was talking because the camera was so far away. It's one of those things where you just got to do what you got to do. But this is a picture from that specific us recording a show in McAllister's.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of those things where it wasn't the best quality. We really didn't start getting great quality up until like a couple of years ago. I mean, half of the time we've been doing it, we've been running and gunning, winging it. But then like we've really started to be able to master our craft, right? To be able to not just formulate and have great conversations with guests, but also with the technology that keeps advancing throughout our tenure. So we've always been able to elevate ourselves with that as well. So that's always been kind of fun because I went back and listened to the Kevin Weissman interview, and man, oh man, that one was a little rough. This was also a time where we were using I don't remember if it was the board before we got our own board or when we were still using like USB mics that plug directly into the computer. But it was when we were staying at an amazing apartment that had like a pool house room or like a
Yep.
community room that we reserved for this specific one. This is the only one we did in that room. Because people kept coming in and getting their own coffee, which was super annoying. At like 7 o'clock at night. Like you don't need
Yes.
coffee at 7 o'clock at night.
That's right.
But like it was one of those things where yeah, we either set the microphone up right to the phone and did it that way. We had a bunch of different locations that we did the podcast at, right? Because I mean, everybody remembers when we went from producing and creating everything in Biloxi, Mississippi, and made our leap out to Los Angeles. We were recording in hotel rooms, we were recording in our friends' houses, we were recording like everywhere. And then, yeah, like when we made the transition to North Carolina, we were doing the exact same thing. So to think about all the different places that we recorded episodes is kind of hilarious.
And the idea of, but I think that's where our audience kind of realized these guys are committed because no matter where they're
Yeah.
at, what they're doing, they are making sure they drop an episode when it's supposed to drop, which was hardcore and not always easy to do. And you're right, in that pool room, it was still the plug into the computer with the USB mics. It was so just like, and that didn't always go smooth. I remember a couple of times we had a couple of guests where we had to go in and do some hardcore editing because nobody realized that the phone was never put on speakerphone and it was just the mic was next to it and it was just coming out as if you were talking on the phone and we're recording the whole thing
Yeah.
and everybody's like can barely hear it, nobody knows why, nobody's saying anything, and we go back and realize, oh, it was never on speaker. So it's just like you were holding, one person was holding it up to their, their ear, but it was, oh my gosh, man, so many different things like that. That's so funny. Um, but it
Well,
worked.
I mean, do you remember that one time that I set up the board for what's his name? Jackson on Gilmore Girls and
Yes.
freaking Jackson Douglas.
Yes.
And freaking I plugged it in the wrong adapter. So we had to completely it was getting recorded off of someone else's mic who was in the room. So we had to completely manipulate that bad boy and like but I mean we got it out there. It was listenable.
That's
But yeah,
right.
it was we a lot of trial and error, okay? We were never pretended to be professional podcasters when we first started. But we learned a lot from our peers and we learned a lot from trial and error. And that's why we say, you got to keep learning from others and learn from yourself to keep moving forward because that's what really shows you who you are and what you're made of. So, I mean, it's been a very special experience, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And then early on, like I said, the first few episodes when we were interviewing the people that we were intending to hire on our film projects and stuff, I mean, that was okay. That was kind of easy because we knew them already and we had talked to them, kind of a thing. But when you go back and you listen to those early episodes and we started getting some guests, it was really, really kind of rough. Where we are now with our interviewing skills and how we conduct our interviews compared to where we were early on when it was the 8 of us and we had prepared questions and each person asked a question and there was really no response. Like if they said something that really needed a follow-up, we wouldn't follow up because the next person would just ask their question and there was no back and forth. And
Well, it's funny because we did that even when we diluted to just us as well. Because I remember the first interview, because I always talk about all the time that I was a very anxious individual and couldn't really hold a conversation. But Trina Lafargue was one of the first interviews that I did as like the lead of starting it, having the conversation, and then working your way into it. But even on that conversation, like neither one of us really did follow-up conversations when it came to we got a great question asked, we got a great answer, but then after that, all right, we're like on to the next one, on to the
yep.
next one. Like it was very interesting. And remember the times that we would literally before having a guest on, we would review every show or movie they were on, and we would try to hit every show or movie that we watched for them to talk about it. But I
Yes.
mean, that's just not feasible, man. Like,
No.
you got to let the conversation just be a conversation. But we used to try to, all right, they were on Gilmore Girls. All right, they were on Lucifer. All right, they were on Power. Like, we were just trying to boom, 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 boom.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
man,
Yeah.
it was hilarious.
It was pretty. Yeah. I don't know why we always thought we could cram so much in, and
Too much, too
it was
much.
just, and it's funny because when we finally realized to just let it flow, go back and forth, make it conversational, we end up getting longer interviews and more in than we did when we were trying to cram all the facts in. It was crazy, and then of course one that we have to bring up, the infamous, the amazing, the everybody was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Mr. Ed Asner, the late, great Ed Asner. Wow, were we caught off guard on that one. Ed was, he was gracious enough to be a guest on the show, and he called in, but Ed was having a little fun that day, and he was, let's just say, ornery. We'll go with the word ornery to describe Mr. Asner that day, and he was letting us have it a little bit, and he came on and he started right away like that with the and everybody in the room went silent, like what? Fuck that. I'm not touching that. And so I was in pure panic mode because nobody would pick up the microphone. And I'm like, oh shit. Okay. So we got through it. I kind of guided and led. And because I'm older than everybody else, and especially back then, it was a really young group. So I had known some of the older stuff that Ed had done, and I was bringing up Mary Tyler Moore. I was bringing up Elvis. I was bringing anything to keep him on track, on subject of talking, so that we could get some stuff in, because it was just so all over the place. And I remember when we went to edit that interview, we talked to him. We talked to Ed for nearly 2 hours. And that wasn't because the interview was that long. It was just because he was so scattered. We had to keep reining him back in. So we've got like 2 hours of footage where we're talking to Ed. And this thing ended up like what, 27 minutes? 20, like, I can't even remember how long the interview was.
I don't think it was 2
No,
hours.
no.
I think it was around an hour. But yeah, it came down to like 25 minutes.
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff. And we had to just consistently cut, and make it. But boy, if you listen to it, it sounds like it was spot on. Like, this is the conversation we had. He was just rolling. He was in a festive mood and everything was good. Put it this way. When he came on, he was like Basically, what the hell am I even doing this for? By the time it ended, he was inviting us to come out to New York to see his show. So it was it was quite the transition from the beginning of the interview to the end of the interview. But thankfully, though, why it stands out for me is because it turns out it really was one of the last interviews that he did before he passed away. He stopped doing a lot of press and he wasn't doing a lot of interviews. And so we were very fortunate to have one of the last ones. And so that's just a great memory that, we'll always keep with us, that we were able to have some fun and talk to him. And yeah, but boy, was that an experience.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. And I mean, so was, William Daniels and Bonnie Bartlett, aka Mr. Feeney and Mrs. Feeney. That was quite an experience itself. I mean, of course, there was the legend factor, and a lot of the younger people knew William Daniels more than Ed Asner, just because, I mean, of course, Elf and stuff like that. But
For
I
sure.
feel like William Daniels implemented or like affected our lives more than that. But yeah, that was interesting too. A great conversation. But w- Bill's a little old, so
Yeah.
we had to we either had to speak loudly or Bonnie would have to relay the message to him.
Yeah.
So that was always an interesting dynamic to try to balance all that out, but it always ends up being an amazing thing. And that's the beauty of these conversations and these shows being pre-recorded, and it's all editable. And I mean, that's the same that it is now. It really helps you in the long run to where you're like, okay, that sounded stupid. Let's cut that shit out.
Right.
But I mean, it's one of those things where, you're able to talk to legends and you're able to talk to people who are monumental in pop culture history, and to be able to just be in their presence or have a conversation with them is just an honor. So especially in those early days, it's crazy that we were able to experience those type of things. And I mean, we really have to thank, some of our first guests,
Yeah.
like Rebecca Kennedy, who has now turned into our forever guest, right? I mean, she's been on the
14
show like
times.
14 times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
14
exactly.
times.
So, I mean, to keep blessing us with her presence and the relationship and bond that we've been able to build with her off the podcast, has been something special. So, I mean, there's all of these different reasons that we continue to do this podcast that are so far away from why we started the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, I mean, it's definitely something special.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up William and Bonnie because if I'm not mistaken, they're really the first cross-generational guests that we had, where all of the young people knew them from this, and then I knew him from Knight Rider and Saint Elsewhere, and of course Boy Meets World also, because I was still around during Boy Meets World and it was an iconic show and everything. But I was more excited that I was talking to Kit than Mr. Feeney. It was just one of those really cool things where we could cross the generations with a guest. I remember. Another fun one was the because again we were caught off guard. The very first time that we talked to the extraordinary Danny Strong, he's coming on. We were super excited. Gilmore Girls, of course, is Doyle and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and we're like, he's late calling in, but no problem. We're good. No, that's fine. That's good. We're good. And then we're like a few minutes in, and he said, guys, I gotta go. I'll call you back. And he just okay. And he just cut up and hung up. And we're just like, wait a minute. Is he going to call back? When is he going to and he did, of course, he's a man of his word. And he did call us back and finish the interview. And it's a stellar interview. It's a fantastic interview. But we were certainly, to say the least, caught off guard. We're like, wait, did he just hang up? Did he just leave? What are we doing right now?
Yeah, it was something like he was getting dropped off at his house.
Yep,
and then
yep.
he had to walk through construction, because I went back and listened to that interview, and he's like, I apologize if you guys can hear construction
Exactly.
below me, because there was something going on. But yeah, we were like, Okay, please call back because this is monumental for us, so please do.
Yeah, and
Uh,
we were kind of like we didn't know what to do. Do we like just do we get up and start resuming stuff? Do we just keep do and wait for the phone call? Do we sit and wait for the phone call because he could be? We didn't know. We didn't know the time frame of when he was going to call back. So we're just like, okay, I guess we're gonna roll with this. Like, so yeah, always fun. And then of course Danny has come on several more times after that, and he's just been an absolute. Most recently when he was talking about Dope Sick and all of the massive success with Dope Sick. So he's been an amazing guest for us and a really good friend, and he's an amazing guy. So really pumped that we were able to get him and continue to have him as a guest on the show because he's just awesome.
yeah, and I mean, one of the things, because like I said, went back and listened to the first interview that we had with him. So one of the things that I still take away from that interview every time I listen to it is, you don't always have to write what you know.
Yes.
Starting out as a writer, of course, you can write what you know, and I mean, hopefully it turns out to be good, but you don't always have to do that because there's that one particular thing that helps you out. Research, research. That's what happens when you are able to have the internet and find all of these different things around that particular topic.
Yep.
So that is vital information, and that's actually his advice that he gave to up and coming writers. Don't write what you know. Research what you want to write.
And
So I always love that.
and another thing that I took away from that one that he also dropped was don't be scared to put it down and go write something else and come back to it because sometimes
Yeah.
it's just not there. It's just not where you need it to be, and you can sit and waste a whole lot of time trying to get it there, or you can go write something else and go write this and and then come back and go boom, now I've got this kind of a thing. I thought that was valuable too because a lot of times I feel like people get writer's block and then they get stuck and then they're just like I got to finish this, I got to finish this, I got to finish this, and they just ignore everything else. And it's like you can't do that. You got to
Yeah.
like so he's had a little success as a writer. So his advice is probably pretty
Just a tiny
solid.
bit.
Just a tiny bit. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I remember another monumental moment for us was, everybody knows we're super big into pop culture. We're super big Marvel fans, superhero fans. But to have someone who was actually in a Marvel film
Mm.
was so freaking crazy. Like, and plus, if I'm not mistaken, this may have been the first person who we interviewed that was a child star.
Was our first
Um,
child star. Yep.
Akira Akbar, who is now on Bel Air, for those who don't know. She was our first ever Marvel movie star that we had on the show. That was so freaking crazy. Because, I mean, the way that we were still new to the game, but able to approach it with such class and carefulness, I felt like we did a very good job. And that particular interview shows, like, how much we cared about the craft and how much research we did to it. And I mean, this is also a very amazing thing because we actually got to talk to it was set up through one of Disney and Marvel's PR people. So
Yep.
that got us in the door at Disney and Marvel to where people at Disney and Marvel started knowing the name ITCAF podcast. And I mean, that was monumental.
Oh, without doubt. And that led to a little block over like that month and a half span where we had like a whole Marvel block. We were talking to Jeffrey Cantor and Amy Rutberg and all the people from Daredevil at that point because it was like slamming and stuff. So we were
Yeah.
like, yeah, we've got all these Marvel people coming on the show. It was pretty good. Amy was really fun too. I remember that she at the end of the interview, she was so cool. She's like, "Oh, you're going to be in New Orleans? Well, I'm going to be in New Orleans shooting NCIS. Yeah, NCIS. And she's like, just come find me at this such and such location. I'll buy you a drink for your birthday. We were like, she said that to one of our people, Tavia.
Oh.
And we're like, wait, what? Did she just literally say, hey, come talk to me. I'll buy you a drink for your birthday? Just those type people, that they're just real people. They're just like you and me. They're just like, and they're the nicest, kindest people. And I think that's one thing that we've kind of had the blessing to learn and develop these friendships over the years with all of these people is that they really are just good people. And this just happens to be what they do. And that's an amazing, thing, to be able to just realize they're no different. They're no, they get up every day the same way everybody else does, and they're just trying to live their best lives and do what they can. And we've, over the years, gotten really deep. I mean, we've gotten into some really deep conversations that we didn't expect to get into, but I think that it works out really, really well. I think one of the ones I remember initially is Denham Richards, of course, Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about Kevin Costner, and then he just went real deep into slavery and the history and just all kinds of stuff. And we were like, wow, okay, we're going to go there. And then we kind of like not long after that followed it up with J. Alex Brinson, who was the first guest to basically flip it on us. He's like, well, let me ask you guys. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. And I don't know. I think we really kind of like, we were caught off guard at first, but I enjoyed that. I liked the opportunity for somebody to say, well, tell me about you, and let's hear what you guys are all about, and let's get into these subjects, and what drives you. What are you morally this, or what do you think about this? And that turned into a really amazing conversation where all of a sudden it wasn't us interviewing him. It was just, I think that was the real kind of like big turning point where like, okay, we can get really conversational with this. And I think that the fans like that when we just get really conversational and go back and forth as if we're just a bunch of friends sitting around the table. And I think that's the first interview that really kind of directed that, because he was the first one to turn it back on us and say, talk about you guys, right?
Yeah, completely agree. And I mean, it was at the very beginning of the interview too.
It
So
was.
like I felt like, we were like, whoa, that's just not how this is supposed to go. So yeah, it was definitely one of those things where, you got to be prepared for everything in this
Oh,
industry, man, and for just in conversations in general, because they can go any which way, and but they always turn out beautiful. And I love that we are able to experience these different types of things with these different types of people. It's always nice. And I mean, one of my favorites of all time, and I'm so glad I went back and listened to it to get prepared for this show, is John Clarence Stewart from Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist and P Valley
yep.
and so many others. But this conversation was so fun, so deep, so genuine. Like, we went everywhere. We spanned across so many conversations with this one. And this was before we had Zoom Premium, so the conversation actually got cut off, but we were able to finish up the interview. It was just, all right, yep, goodbye. Yeah. So it was one of those
I
things where we're
do
like,
remember
no.
that. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
after this conversation is when we signed up for the premium.
Yeah.
We were like, no, this can't happen again, because they restrict you at like a 45-minute mark. And
Right.
I'm sure not a lot of people know we have a pre-conversation and then we have a post-conversation after and before the interviews. So to get them more comfortable and get them to know who we are, so they don't go in thinking that they're just talking to random strangers.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was such an amazing conversation that I urge people to go back and listen to that one specifically. Because like I said, we talk about religion, death, finding yourself, losing yourself, and mental health, and all of these different things. It was a beautiful one, to be honest.
It really was. And the way that he weaved everything, that whole emotional, we're going up, we're going down, we're going to get sad, we're going to get happy, we're going to laugh, we're going to cry. The way that he weaved all of it together and yet still somehow talked about, hey, this is how I approach my acting. Hey, let me tell you about my show that I put on, because I'm so passionate about music, and I had, Studio 54 below, and like, and the way he was able to weave it all together, and then still, it was an amazing, amazing conversation. And by the way, guys, I'm sure you've seen on our social media when we repost and stuff, this man, if you haven't seen him in his show, go see him when he performs, because this guy can kill it on stage, y'all. He is like a hardcore musician and singer. This guy's getting it done. I mean, he's got so much talent. They scratched the surface on Zoe's. This guy is for real. I'm just telling you, this guy is for real. Another fun one for us, and maybe a first if I'm not mistaken, because we've had so many, but Shanola Hampton. We've huge Shameless fans. We had the great opportunity to go out on and to the America 2.0 event and stand on the red carpet with Shanola and pictures and just have this conversation with her and get to know her. And she is just like this amazingly awesome, kind, genuine person. And if I'm not mistaken, she was the first person to like really like break something really big on the show. She was about to make her directorial debut and she held it and she gave it to us. She said, I'm going to announce this for the very first time ever on your show. I'm going to make my directorial debut by directing one of the final episodes of Shameless. And we were like, what? So, we were able to get that big. We had it first before in fact, if I'm not mistaken, we dropped the soundbite. We bleeped it, but we dropped the soundbite before any of the trades had it. We knew she was going to direct before the trades ran with it. And that was like an amazing little kind of a thing to say, oh my gosh, she's going to do this for us. She's going to be like that. That's amazing. So that's really kind of cool. And again, it goes back to like what you were saying earlier, Logan, about always be nice, be kind to people, be yourself, be a good person, because in return, they will do that for you. They will be a good person. They will show up when you need them to, and they will give you. It's just, Shanola has been just amazing. She's always spot on. She's been so good. And we're forever grateful for her and all of the people from America 2.0. Actually, let's just throw them all in there because they were all absolutely phenomenal and fantastic to invite us out there to that event and to give us that type of exposure, because they literally actually took the time during their event and turned it towards us and said, hey, by the way, here's the Crazy Ant guys. And they came out here. Guys, that's like a rare thing that doesn't happen very often, to take the time out of where you're supposed to be getting all the press and all the glory and turn it and say, by the way, check out these guys. Forever grateful for that. They were amazing. And that just, it was incredible. And Shanola's just still a gem, and we love her to death, and thrilled for her show, for Found, and all the success she's having after Shameless.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. And I mean, it's always like, it's kind of like Candyland, one foot in front of the other, because like, I mean, we really wouldn't have even known about America 2.0 and gone out to that event if Autumn Reeser didn't post on social media, vote for Seth.
Exactly.
And you being such a political junkie, you like research the hell out of like Congress, Senate, all of these different things, and the political junket, to where you're like, who is Seth? I don't understand. Who is Seth?
Yeah.
And like it became a little obsession of yours before they even announced that they were doing the podcast.
It
and
was.
Then, yeah. That we were able to talk to her about not only America 2.0, but everything else that she's been in as well. And that was an amazing experience.
Oh, yeah. The very first time. Yeah. It was like, I'm glad you brought it, because I totally forgot about that. Yeah. But yeah, I was like obsessed with finding out who the fuck this Seth guy was and why didn't I know about him? You're so right. I finally we had to call her up and like, hey, should I be voting for this Seth guy? Who is he? And then she's like, he's a fake. He's like, this is a thing I'm doing. Oh, okay. But I remember the very first time we interviewed her, she called in. She was in the car. Remember, she was doing it from her car, and she called in, and that was interesting because it was like, okay, this is going to be rocking and rolling. But very generous and very nice, and it was awesome. And she's been a really good one too. One of my favorite moments on the big 100th episode, we had the incredible Jason Ritter on the 100th episode, our big milestone 100th episode, and he was the guest. But we also had Rebecca Kennedy and Autumn Reeser come and join us on the top 5, and we did a book club top 5. So we all sat and told our favorite top 5 books. We all learned like all these amazing books from each other and everything, and it went over really well. I mean, we still get messages like, when are you guys going to do the next book club? When are you guys going to do the next book club? So that was fun. Just little things that we were learning like that about, like, oh, what can we do? How can we change it up? What can, that the fans would really like, kind of a thing. And for anybody out there, before we start talking about some of our other favorite stuff, if you're all into that book club stuff, Autumn's got a book club. go to her Instagram. You can join that book club, and you can get some of it. You can participate in conversations with her and talk about the books, and it's a really fun time. She does it every month, and so if you're missing the book club stuff, go check it out. That's all I'm saying.
That's right. That's right. But I mean, as everyone knows, the show just continues to evolve into something bigger and better every single year. And like we said, we've been doing it for 6 plus, almost 7 years now, into our seventh year, I think. And so to be able to continue this journey has been amazing. And to go back and listen to some industry news, they make the announcement and then some stuff just gets cut and they don't tell you it gets cut. Because when I went back, it was probably at 220 something with Max Montesi as our guest. I went back and was listening to some stuff, and I'm like, I haven't heard anything about that since we reported on it the first initial time.
That's
So like
right.
that's the thing too. They like to use the trades, as we say in the industry. They like to use the trades to see what pops and then what catches people's attention. And then if it really doesn't, it seems like it kind of dwindles away without anyone ever knowing, which is an interesting thing in the entertainment industry. So that's why we report on new news every single week, and that's why you have to listen to ITCAF podcast.
And
Like for example, what's going on with the Jason Ritter, Kathy Bates Murdoch reboot? Like I haven't heard anything about that recently.
yeah, so the last I saw, it was pushed to 2025. It's going to debut in 2025, and I guess it's a COVID thing. That's what caused it. It kind of like they couldn't fit it into the schedule the way they wanted it to fit into the schedule. I guess scheduling conflicts because of COVID. So 2025 is what I'm hearing now for that. That's an excellent point. It's and another thing that we've gotten really good at, if you guys pay attention to, and go and listen to our predictions, our 2024 predictions, but we have gotten really good doing our research for shows and paying attention to the industry news of predicting where the industry is going. And we will say stuff during our industry news segments, and it's just our opinions. It's just thoughts that we have and things that we think and things that we're looking at, because as filmmakers, we need to kind of know where we think it's going and all that. And then it'll happen. And we're like, called that, knew that. Like, that's been a really fun thing to see our growth in being able to predict the industry and kind of foresee where we're going and what's happening, and being so accurate at doing it. We've had so many of our guests come on and say, when I want to know what's going on, I just listen to you guys because you know more than the trades do, kind of a thing. It's really cool to hear them say that, but it's a lot of work. Logan and I do a lot of work of paying attention to the industry so that when we do our news, it's accurate, and that because we want you guys to know what's going on, and we want you guys, especially since this podcast is for the up and comers and people trying to get into the industry, we want you to have the most accurate, the most informed information out there so that you can guide yourself in what you're trying to do. And so we work really hard at trying to make that industry news everything it needs to be so that you're aware of stuff that's going on and maybe aware of stuff that you need to stay away from. It's very important.
That's right, man. That's right. It all is very, very important. But now it is time for our guest segment. We got the
Yes.
one and only Dannie McCallum coming on the show to talk about Echo and everything in between. This woman had a very interesting upbringing. Not only was she a sports player, not only was she a thespian, she also raised animals like pigs and all of these different things. So her upbringing and her backstory is so impressive and so interesting and intriguing. So I'm really excited for people to hear this interview.
Oh yeah, she was an absolute gem. Just her real life was as interesting as the show that she's talking about with Echo, right? And playing it. Of course, we do get deep in this one too. She talks about the authenticity of the representation on the show and how proud she is and how she hopes to be inspiring other people of color and indigenous people to go after that. We get deep, but it's also a lot of fun because she raised a pig. So this is
That's
a
right.
blast. This one is a really fun interview.
It really is. It really is. Well, here she is.
Dannie McCallum, welcome inside the Crazy Ant Farm. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. It's a sunny day here in California, which is very rare during the wintertime. So,
Oh, yes, the sun. I was so happy to see the sun. Logan, I saw you post earlier too. It's been really rainy where we're at also, so it's like, hello, sunshine. It's nice to see you again. It's been
Exactly.
absolutely.
fantastic. Well, listen, we are super excited to talk to you. We're huge Marvel geeks. We're all in on the MCU. We don't buy all the stuff. It's going down. It's poor. I know. It's fine. It's going to be great. And so we're pumped. Echo. Loved it. We just, I mean, wow, what an incredible show. What an incredible kickoff to the character, everything. So we're obviously super excited to talk to you about that. But, you're a pretty talented gal and you've been in some other stuff. And doing our research, your story about how you kind of got started and your influences and your upbringing, very interesting. So let's start there. Did you
Yeah.
always know you wanted to be an actress? Did you kind of fall into it? What's the deal? How'd you know this is for me?
It was all my older sister's fault, of course, as it always is. There was a traveling theater that used to come through our hometown every summer, and my parents are teachers, so during the summer they have the summers off with us, but you need to find something for the kids to do because there was four of us just kind of running around, my mom put my sister in this traveling theater, and you audition for 2 days, you rehearse for 3 days, you perform for 2 days, and then they magically go off into the wilderness and come back next year. And so my sister did it one year and I went, well, that's not fair. Like she's getting flowers and everybody's clapping for her. Like, oh, I need to do that. So then I got put into it the next summer and I was a mouse or a rat in the Pied Piper, whichever you think that
Oh,
they are.
yeah.
Yes, I was gray either way. And then and then it just kind of kicked off from there. There was a time in my life, second grade, I really wanted to be a paleontologist
Oh.
Oh.
because my second grade teacher, Ms. Ramos, had she gave us chocolate chip cookies and a toothpick. And this was like the class activity. And it was you have to get the chocolate chips out of the cookie without breaking them. And
Hmm.
I mean, I'm a focus. Like you put me to do something, and I focus on that one thing. So there I was taking out all the chocolate chips, and I thought, this is great. I could do this forever. And then immediately went back into acting. I love it so much.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
so awesome. I love that too. Because I mean, there's so many different things I feel like, you're exposed to when you're a child. I mean, with your parents being teachers, maybe them trying to be like, hey, you could also take this sort of, educational role or, all these different things because I know you also raise pigs. So that's very interesting. We'll talk about that a little bit later too. But I mean, what I really connect with is the family dynamic
Mm,
coming from a lot of siblings, especially when sometimes, you want to follow your older siblings and sometimes you want to be completely different from them, right? I
Mhm.
had siblings that were very much into sports. I had siblings that were very much into like skateboarding and like punk rock band type of thing. So to be able to try to like navigate and kind of bob and weave in between like kind of what everybody's doing just so I can put my feet in just a little bit
Yeah.
to see, how I develop as a person myself. So did you kind of feel that way as well? Were you just kind of, it seems like you had a good relationship with your siblings. So did you kind of follow their lead or did you just kind of like, try different things out?
Yeah, older sisters are always going to influence you in one way or another. You're either going to
Yeah.
follow what they do or you're going to do the exact opposite. And I think there's a lot of stuff that my sister started to do that I was like, wow, that seems so cool. And so I would try it out, and if it worked, it worked, and if it didn't, it didn't. And my parents have been coaches for my entire life, coaches and teachers. So
Hmm.
I started playing soccer when I was 4, and for a while I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be an Olympian. Like this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. And then basketball and volleyball and dance and I was just had a lot of stuff thrown at me, but I'm
Hmm.
so thankful for that because I got into zero trouble.
oh, for
I
sure.
maybe 1% trouble. I got into one
Just
percent
just a
trouble,
tiny bit.
just a little bit. But I always had not only my older sister kind of watching out for me, but then I was the second, so I was watching over two little ones also and trying to influence them. And if my sister raised a pig, so then I wanted to raise a pig, and then my little brother raised rabbits instead of pigs, and then my little sister was like, I don't like any of that. No, I'm not into it. So
That's
we all
so
kind of
funny.
influence what we do.
Wow. So the list of stuff you just like listed out. So it could not be better training to be an actor because you know y- I think the best actors pull from real life, stuff they've been through, things they've lived. And yeah, I mean, you've done just about everything. I feel like when you audition for a role, you're like, been there, done that. I can act that. I can
Yep.
do that. It's
Yep.
like you've literally done everything. I love the sports dynamic. My brother and I played sports together. He was 7 years younger than me. So he started off just really
Wow.
annoying, wanting to like always be
Yeah.
around. And I'm like, just go away. But then as he got older and was old enough to actually hang around, we were
Yeah, kind of hold his
inseparable. And
own.
the whole dynamic changed. Yeah. And sports was our thing. So talk about sports though, because I think in this industry where it is a tough industry, it's built on no, right? And it's
Yeah.
hard and networking and connecting and getting to people. I think sports is an excellent foreground for that, to learn how to build a teamwork and network and rely on each other to get where you're trying to go to be successful. I think that lays really solid groundwork when you enter into this industry. Did you find that to be true? Because I think everybody should play sports at least once in their life just to try to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think having a foundation of sports and my parents also being our coaches kind of growing up and even into high school, my dad was my varsity volleyball coach. Um,
Mhm.
Having that kind of foundation of, it's my decision on whether I want to, my dad's not going to wake me up at 6 a.m. to go practice. It's
That's
my
right.
decision. Do I want to wake up and get him up and say, Dad, can you take me to the field? Or, hey, can you go kick a ball with me in the backyard? Mom, can you help me, do some volleyball drills or some basketball drills? Because both my parents were athletes. And so I think also something that I do a lot with when people ask me, what the acting to sports relationship is, and kind of going to class for acting, I always relate it to a soccer game where if I haven't played a soccer game in 3 years and then you go, hey, go play a soccer game right now, I'm going to be a little rusty. I'm not going to be
Mhm.
the worst person out there, but I'm definitely going to be a little rusty, maybe pull a muscle.
Right.
Same with acting, going to class and always working. Our body is our instrument as actors. And same with going to class and kind of always working on that skill set, finding one skill, whether, in soccer, it's dribbling, dribbling and being really good at that, finding something in acting that you like that you want to really hone in on for a little bit. If you don't practice and if you don't keep going to class and you don't keep working on your skill set and your body, you're going to be rusty. The next time you get an audition, you're going to
Yep.
go, oh, this, I'm nervous again, or I feel like I did really bad. You're not doing anything, you're not moving.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's very interesting too, because yeah, you're right. You have to keep flexing those muscles to make sure you stay trained, basically, to where you're staying
Absolutely.
prepared. And as an individual who, loves the craft of acting, cinematography, and all the creative side, but yeah, also still being very, involved in the exercise and being out there, because I mean, healthy body, healthy mind, and that
yep.
goes hand in hand. We talk about that on our other podcast, which is mainly about mental health. But I'm curious, what was your favorite sport?
Oh, I always loved soccer. I really did.
Soccer?
Dan
Yep.
Ham was my
I
just my idol. We actually all got a choice in my little sister's name, and we were gonna name her either Peekaboo after Peekaboo Street, who's
oh my
also a
goodness.
track star. And then you got Mia after Mia Hamm, and we
Hmm.
all loved soccer 'cause we all played soccer. So it was like, oh, Mia, like her name has to
That's
be Mia.
awesome.
Mia.
Right,
She
exactly.
she's not into soccer. She didn't like the sun. So
That's hilarious. I
yeah,
love that. A little story time, I guess, just so you can get to know us a little bit more. I
yeah.
also played soccer. Soccer and basketball were definitely my two favorite sports. I was way better at indoor soccer than I was outdoor soccer. I would play JV on the high school team, but I had a lot of really talented players on the varsity team. But I remember making my first goal for the JV, and I was like, I'm number one. I'm number one. But then in JV, like, I don't know. It was interesting too because I had my hand in football a little bit too, and for high school and junior high, but I was never as aggressive in football that I was in soccer. It was so weird because I felt like I was being more aggressive in soccer when two people are battling for the ball and this person's behind me, I would throw my elbow and like it would get really
I
aggressive
Yeah.
sometimes.
mean,
I'll admit that. But it's interesting too because I never knew, I didn't grow up in a space where, the arts were really a thing as far as
Yeah.
performing arts. So to be able to get into high school and what I all I've ever known was the sports mentality, but then getting into high school, being able to transition into being a thespian and getting on stage and being able to, flex that creative muscle a little bit to obviously what molded into who I am now as a person. So talk about that a little bit from going from, sports into theater. Was it something that was a challenge or was it different at all? Because I know my school in particular was very, you were either one way or another. There was never
Yeah.
really cross contamination, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
I was really the only person that would do that. And they'd be like, what's theater like? And then I go over here and they'd be like, why are you playing sports? But I'm like, I love both. I don't know what to tell you. I love both. But I mean, did you
Yeah.
have any of that or was everybody just very kumbaya, rocking and rolling together?
No, yeah, no. My school was very much like yours, where they really wanted you to choose one thing and go
Right.
for it. For me, for me, going into school, I always played sports outside of our school leagues.
Okay.
I played like traveling teams. So
Hmm.
growing up, it was, you're going to school for 8 hours, staying for extracurriculars, staying for whatever little plays or choir or guitar or folklorico dances or, pick something. And then going to soccer practice after that and having, soccer tournaments every Saturday. We were all in the field and we were there for hours because my sister would play, then I would play, then my brother would play, then my little sister would play for a little bit, and then we'd all sit in a tent and drink Kool-Aid. So, going into it and trying to balance all of that, it
Right.
it never felt like a big deal to me. And so when I did get into high school, kind of junior and senior year, and people were going, "Well, you have to choose,"
Right.
and I was like, why? Like,
Hmm.
why do I have to choose? I still have to raise my hand to go to the bathroom. You're telling me I have to choose what I want to do for the rest of my life right now?
Right.
Like, no way, man. I
Yeah.
should be able to do whatever I want. So I did both. I played sports and I raised pigs and I was in FCA and I did theater. I mean, I did so many things.
See, okay, well, I'm a wee bit older than both of y'all, and I'm just
If
gonna
you couldn't
tell you,
tell, if you couldn't tell.
that even back when I was in high school, it was still the same way. It has not made any
Really?
kind of a thing. It was still a, what do you mean you play football and hockey, but you want to do this? It was like, and I was in ROTC too, so ROTC, so I was really
Oh, yeah,
weird.
yeah.
They're like, wait, you play sports, you want to act, and you're like military? Like, what is wrong with you? Like,
Pretty
so
much.
it hasn't changed all these years, which is insane to me. I just feel like you should be able to, like you said, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I think though for me, look, I was football and hockey were by far my favorite. I loved playing football and hockey. I was aggressive in both. It was like that was a little bit rough. But swimming was where everybody wanted me to go. I was on the swim team, and for a long time, my coaches were trying to get me for the Olympic trials. I was really fast and really getting
Wow.
for a long time. They thought that was going to be my future, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to the Olympics. And they're like, you don't want to go to the, if
I
you have
wanna
a
go to the
chance to go to
Olympics.
the Olympics. And I'm like, I don't. I'm sorry. I appreciate it, but I don't want to. I'm like,
Yeah.
So I understand that the pressure of like, somebody else trying to tell you what your path is going to be. And,
Yeah.
so you've mentioned your parents several times, and the reason I brought that up about like people kind of like you should do this, you should do this, you should do this
Yeah.
because, and I'm curious because we talk all the time about having a support system in this industry and the right people around you and how critical that is. Because Logan and I still to this day, we still hear from friends and in some cases even family about get a real job. What do you
Yeah.
you need to think about a real career. You're getting older and this and that. What are you doing still trying to play? But then, when we made our directorial debut and we had our film debut and we had the big red carpet event and they all want to show up on the red carpet. It's not a
Of
real
course.
job, but it's time to be on the red carpet kind of a thing.
Hmm.
So talk about that a little bit. Have you experienced that type stuff about when you say, this is what I'm going to do? And they're like, oh, but what about a real job? Have you had to go through that?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Whether it be culturally, whether it be, family, whether it be our teachers, always going like, well, you need to have a plan B. Like you really
Hmm.
no, but you should, that's great. That's so great, but you really should have a plan B. And my mom will say this till she's blue in the face. I remember her very, very prominently telling me, I love that you're a dreamer and you want to do this and you've got big, big goals, but you need to have a plan B just in case. And I said, and it's advice, take it or leave it. But I very much so said, if I allow myself to have a plan B, that's allowing myself to fail at plan A. That's
Oh,
telling myself it's okay if you fail because you've got something else. If you only have a plan A and that's the only thing you're going to go for, you won't let yourself fail. If it gets hard, you won't let yourself stop because there's nothing else. You've got nothing else to go on.
yeah.
That's something I believed with all my heart. And it's, I get it, the security of money and insurance and all the things that, but also you get to a point in your career that all that stuff is there, all that stuff is coming. It
Yep.
just takes a little bit of time and patience, which is what parents teach you all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oof.
most definitely. I mean, we say all the time, the difference between the people who make it and the people who don't are the people who just give up. The ones who don't continue moving forward
Yep.
are the ones who don't get to inevitably where they want to be. Like, yes, this is a very slow burn of an industry, and we try to tell people that because this podcast is, for the up and comers trying to break into the entertainment industry, and everybody's trajectory is different. And so you have to be prepared for that. You can't compare yourself to anyone else who may be around the same age or even starts off the same time as you because different people have different opportunities that present themselves in their own lives on their own paths. So it's very hard to try to stay on the straight and narrow and just stay tunnel vision thinking about your own path, right? So to be
Yeah.
able to do that and continue moving forward, we always say this industry is an industry full of selection and not rejection. So to be able to keep saying that to yourself, because at the end of the day, that's all that matters, talking to yourself and if you believe in yourself. So did you ever have any of that on your journey? Did you ever have a little bit like, okay, what am I doing? And if you did, what put you back on the right path?
Yeah, I mean, there was a point where I had signed a contract and then the pandemic happened and
Oh
Right.
yeah.
that was like, okay, what do we do? Not only in acting,
Hmm.
but what do we do in life now? Like, how
Yeah.
do you figure out who you are without this thing that you're not going to be doing for a while. You don't know how long it's going to go. And I think even before that, there were times where I would, maybe sign a TV contract and wait and wait and wait. And you get that no, and you're like, are you kidding? Like, we're so close. And it's funny that you say, it is kind of a slow burn, kind of a waiting game. And it really is, I've had so many people tell me like, you're getting older in this industry, which I'm like, first of all, whoa.
Hold on, time out.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Thanks for your opinion. Didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
But you're getting older in the industry, and the longer you continue this career, more people are going to just drop off because they're not making it. So it's going to give you more of an opportunity, and that's wonderful. But that's also so sad for those dreamers who aren't able to, put their foot down or whatever for whatever reason financially aren't able to continue this journey in their dream. And it makes me sad to think that, somebody's going to be out there going like, I really wanted to be an actor.
Yeah.
That's really what I wanted to do with my life. So as lovely as it is to, continue this, I do think about the people who, have to give up for whatever reason or choosing, something else that they don't love because I would hate to be in a job that I don't love for the rest of my life.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And it really is that mentality of going like, do you really want to be doing something you hate for the rest of your life? Or not
Right.
even something that
Mhm.
you hate, just something that isn't inspiring to you, that you get up and you go, oh, I have to go to work today. It's like, oh my goodness, I am so blessed to get to go to a job today. I get to go to set. I don't care how early it is. I don't care what I'm going to be doing. I am so happy and so lucky to be able to do what I do. Play in a sandbox all day. Yes, I'm
Oh.
there. Pick me up. I'm there.
I love everything about that. And another thing that we talk about too is not just the people that quit or can't follow through or for whatever, but the people who get into it for the wrong reason. The people who get into it because they want to be famous or rich and not because they love the craft, not because they want to be an artist or a creative. And I feel like that if you're entering into it for that, you're never going to succeed because it will never come if that's what you're trying for. It comes when you're not trying for that. It is what I always tell people. It comes because you're working hard and you're passionate and you love what you do, and that's going to get you to that. And so doing the research on you and everything, I know that one of the very first things that you did was a Hunger Games movie, like a background actor. And I think that's so critically important because I know people that like, I don't want to just be a background actor. I don't want to. I don't want a walk on part that doesn't speak. And I'm like, get on a set. Just get on a set.
Just get on set.
That's how
Oh my
somebody
goodness.
sees you. It doesn't matter if you say a damn word. If somebody sees you, that might be your break, you know? You have that conversation. So I always admire people who are willing to be like, I don't care what they tell me. If they offer it to me, I'm going. I don't care if I'm sitting there for 18 hours and I don't say a word. I'm going to go. I'm going to sit on that set and I'm going to be happy that I'm there. So I loved that you said that. And the one thing that stuck out when you said it is like, you saw the crane and you saw the green screen and you're like, oh yeah, no, this is it. Talk about that because we talk about this all the time. And for me, I say it and people think I'm nuts, but I always say, other than the birth of my daughter, I have yet to find anything that matches the feeling of when I'm on set. It's just like the most incredible thing, and it's different every time, so it makes it even more amazing. You know, and talk about that because I imagine so when you're on a big thing like that, even as a background actor, you're going, oh, this is it.
I mean, so wild. The fact that sometimes we even have to stop shooting and everybody would have to go hide under these big pillars because the paparazzi was coming over in a helicopter and they didn't want anybody to see our outfits and what we were doing. And so there you were. And then they'd be like, hurry, 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 go.
Yeah.
And I think the journey from being a background actor in Georgia on the Hunger Games to being who I am in the Marvel universe in Georgia on a set again, just that journey and being on those sets in different capacities, I still felt like every team member, every person on there was so welcoming. I think the biggest trouble or the biggest, maybe confrontation you'll find or the biggest rifts you'll kind of find are with the actors themselves.
Yeah.
With the background actors going like, well, I did this. And you're like, we're all here, man.
Right.
That's right.
Like, some people are there for a check and that's great. And some people are there like me, I just wanted to be on set. I just wanted to know that I could do this and I could be a part of this industry. And what is even more wild that I don't think I've told anybody except for my family, on the Hunger Games, we had Cody Williams. I believe he was an AD on that job. And then Tim Fitzgerald also, I think, believe he was second AD on that job. And I met them on the set of the Hunger Games. I was a background actor and I'm very much like, I try to talk to everybody, try to make people remember my name. You have to network. And even then I was like, oh yeah, this is what I do. No, I really want to be here. And, anything they could push me in the front, I would try and get in. And I remember booking Marvel, getting a call, and I saw the name Cody Williams and I kind of thought, yeah, whatever, right? You're not doing it. And then I get off the plane, they take me straight to set, and Cody Williams standing right in front of me.
And
I went, Cody? And he goes, wait, you're like Danny? And I was like,
yeah. Yeah, that's
so crazy.
Oh my God. I was going to say, and I bet he remembered you. I love, and that is why you're on a Marvel show, because you just wanted to be on set. You just wanted to live the experience, and you were smart enough to talk. It's all about talking. It's, hi, I'm such and such. Why are you doing that? Why do you use that light? What is the setup over here? Because people remember you.
What time's lunch?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Don't believe the rumor of don't talk to them unless they talk to you. Oh my goodness, that was so intimidating when I was on that set. And it really was just not even talking to people, sometimes just making eye contact and then going, hey, how are you? And then, hey, take that opportunity. Don't just go like, oh, I'm good, thank you. Don't be nervous. They're people just like you. Mind you, I get off the plane, I see Cody Williams and we're going, oh my God, you were on, and yeah, oh my gosh, okay. I'm in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta, outside of Atlanta, Georgia for a while. Waiting to shoot, and hey, you've got equestrian training. You got a meeting with the prop master. Perfect, great. Meeting with the prop master goes well. They take us out to a field. We've got training for horseback riding. I get out of the car. I'm putting my own boots on because I brought my own boots, of course. Right. Put my boots on, and I look up, and somebody's like this, and he turns around, and he has a mask on. it's Tim Fitzgerald.
Oh my gosh.
And he's going, Danny? And I went, Tim? And we have a picture together from like the Hunger, like
Yeah.
it was so, and it was so nice for my first project and this project to have been linked in that way, and to talk to both of them and going like, they were both so proud of me, and I was so proud to be working with them again. And I automatically felt safe. I knew that I'd be taken care of. I felt like I had a friend. I felt like I had someone on that set. And it kind of rolls that way when you meet other background actors who you get to work on other projects with, or stunt guys, always be their friends. They're always going to protect you. I'll just kind of making those connections, and don't be afraid to network on those sets, because 7 years down the line, you could be, actually the one in front of the camera doing your thing, and those people could be there for you.
Yes.
Oh, I love that so much for you, because yeah, it is such a positive experience, right? When you are able to find a familiar face, especially on a huge Marvel set, which, this is supposed to be like a couple of years ago, 5 years ago, I would say at least. I mean, it was the pinnacle of the entertainment industry. And right now, a lot of mixed reviews about everything. So I'm sure they're trying to get everything as perfect as possible for the fans, and to be able to have such a good experience on such a high quality, like well-oiled machine that is the sandbox of Marvel.
Yeah.
I feel like is something so freaking special. And we used to talk to people from Marvel from like the original Captain Marvel days, and like way back when, and we know that they used to be very hush hush, very secretive about a lot of things. Are they still like that? Like when you sent in your audition for your sides, were things not the same from when you actually got on set?
The material was very similar, but I actually
Mhm.
didn't know I was auditioning for Marvel
Yep,
until
there it
I got the
is.
job. Other than that, and it's funny because you're normally going through your team for auditions.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yep.
And for this one, my team said, "Here's an NDA. We won't talk to you after this." And I went, "Okay,
Oh
Wow.
wow.
sounds
Wow.
good."
Yeah.
And I only went through casting. That's I knew, whatever it was going to be really cool and pretty secretive.
Right.
But never in the back of my mind was I like, oh, this is Marvel. Like, oh, of
Mhm.
course it is.
Well,
But it also,
yeah.
I genuinely felt like I was so much more comfortable doing the audition, not knowing what it was,
Mm.
Ooh,
and
good point.
not knowing so much about the story and blah blah blah. It was just like, here's a person, here's 3 keywords. This is what she's like. Give us what you got. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, cool. There's no fluff to get in the way. I'm not stressing over anything. I'm just like doing this thing. Okay, cool.
Okay, so now we gotta throw it out there because everybody's listening. Like, wait, they keep talking about Marvel, and she said like equestrian training, and like, what? She's riding a horse. Like, what's going on? Echo, you're in Echo, right? And so all of us geeks know they kind of changed up Echo's powers and origins of her powers, and they're diving deep into the indigenous and spiritual side, and that's where the powers come from. And you're one of the ancestors that gives her the powers. You're Tuklo. And I think you're the one who kind of gives her the badass fighting stuff, right? Because, you're with the gun and you're throwing the knife. And, like, you're the badass that she's kicking people's asses because of.
Yeah.
You're that ancestor, which is awesome. I mean, talk about this whole experience. We've heard nothing but great things about this set, about how everybody learned sign language to be able to communicate with Alakwa, and just that says, wow, what a community, what a set that I'm coming into to work on right there. But talk about the indigenous representation, the hard of hearing community. You're talking about an amputee, to be able to come onto a project that is representing all of these different things, and in a way that they were so authentic. I mean, I'm watching the Indian and the indigenous background and the spiritual stuff, and you can tell that they took great pride and detail of getting that right. Like, we're just not going to put out the kind of. They wanted to make sure that that's not what it was. That this is this. Yeah. And so talk about the experience of that and what it was like working on a set where that was so important, and the representation that you're giving. Your story is so beyond inspiring already. I can only imagine people listening to this interview are going to be inspired by you to want to chase the dream. But then to be on a project where they see this and they realize maybe they're not perfect, maybe they do have something wrong, but they can do it anyway because look at the people in the show and they're doing it. So what does that feel like to be involved with something like so amazing like that?
Yeah, amazing. There's just so much good energy around it, and to be on a project that shows the disabled community. My brother's disabled, so that was very close to my
Oh,
heart.
see,
And then to show the indigenous community, and I know we highlight just the Choctaw culture, but to be of mixed race and to be able to highlight that part of me and kind of explore that part of myself that I didn't get growing up as much as, other people did. To see something different on screen and to see a different story being told, not just the reboot of whatever, or
right.
the same people, the same actor in three movies in the same year, and you're just like, come on, I want to see something different. This is
Hmm.
that show.
Yes.
And then to have to learn ASL and to kind of have that experience, and wanting to kind of pursue that more, and teaching my parents, hey, if you meet anybody at the carpet, this is how you say hi and this is how you spell your name, and getting them into it
Love that.
was so cool and so amazing. It's a project that's really, really close to my heart. And actually, my dad used to collect comic books before we were all born, and then at one point he said, you got to choose between diapers and comic books.
Amen, sister. I know that story.
Yeah, so comic books kind of went away, and when I was filming my last scenes on set, one of our medics actually came up with the Phoenix song comic books that Echo appears in,
Yeah.
and he said, I know we've got a lot of ancestors coming in and out of the show that we've added in, but he's like, I don't know if you know this, and he opened the comic book and he goes, you're the ancestor who's in the actual comic book. Like, you are a comic book character.
Yeah.
Which I was like, there's no way. And then he gifted it to me, so it's on my fireplace over there. But getting to bring that home and show my dad, and then going to the local comic book store that he hadn't been to in like 30 years. And of course there he was going like, I need this comic. And the guy was like, oh, what brings you in for this? And he was like, I can't say, but I really need it.
Kevin Feige will
So
kill me, but yeah, you know.
he bought out all of the copies they had of that, and he just, it felt so good to bring something back home, but also just highlight so many different communities. It's so important to see yourself on screen, see stories that are important to you on screen. I feel like we don't have enough out there in this industry.
Yeah.
Not enough new, authentic, original stories are being told. The fantasy and all that's so wonderful, but to see yourself on screen, to see your story told, and maybe a solution to your story that you haven't even thought about yourself, could help so many people. And I think it's so important. And I'm so happy Marvel like stuck their neck out and did this, because it makes so much sense in this time.
Yes, most definitely. And we talk about all the time, the best form of education is through entertainment, we believe. So to be able to tell these different type of stories, yes, obviously everybody can see we are white men, so we know where our ancestors come from, but we don't know anything else. So I mean, obviously,
Are you sure?
I don't know,
but,
man.
it's one of those things where, people have to be open to learning these type of things, because there's so much more world and culture out there than just your own. Like, I really enjoyed Killers of the Flower Moon and learning everything about that story, and how settlers just came in and basically just completely took over their land and manipulated them and ended up murdering off all of these families. And
Absolutely.
it was such a crazy story to be able to, like, how is this allowed? How is this able to exist? Like, to look at it now and to look back on it, it's absolutely insane. And that's why I said educational purposes, so that we don't have history repeating history. So to be able to continue moving forward and do the right things and not be like those pretentious assholes.
Yeah.
Even though I love Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Of which we were called, by the way. Our first film, it dealt with a lesbian couple who were biracial. And
Okay.
the amount of people that came at us about,
Yeah.
who do you guys think you are to tell this story? Yeah, how can you possibly know? Or we were called all kinds of things. We were for supporting the gay community, or for supporting an interracial person, and blah blah blah. I mean, we were like, whoa, hold on, we're just trying to tell a story, and we're trying to make it real, and we're keeping it like, because this is real. The script that we got, it was the typical white guy male shooter and the white girlfriend and blah blah blah, and we were like, this isn't real. This happens, but there's so much more in life that's going on. We need to talk about
Absolutely.
that. And so, but yeah, as two white guys, that we were hammered from all different directions going. But I think the thing that we showed and that we won a lot of people over with is that we are educated, and we did take the time to learn things that we didn't know, and we wanted to represent it the right way. And if we didn't know something, we said, well, we've never experienced that, so talk about what that's like, because we don't know. And so,
And that's really all it takes. It just takes the comfortability or even the nervousness to just go, hey, I don't know about this, but I really want to tell a story. Can I get people involved who do know about this, who have lived through this, or who know something about it? And that's where, it comes in with having writers in the room who are deaf, who are indigenous, who come from different cultures, having, cameramen, having an indigenous cultural coordinator, Pishan Bread. She was on with us every single day, to have that, to have that level of importance and show that level of respect to the communities was super important. And people, some people go about it the wrong way. And Marvel definitely stepped up and said, it's so important to have indigenous directors, to have indigenous writers, to have all of the areas represented so that we have accurate representation and accurate words and accurate actions.
Well, you said the word authenticity. It was authentic for that very reason. So,
yeah, completely agree. Well, something new, like we've been talking about before.
Oh, here they come.
In the pre-interview, we have the popcorn questions, and we'll do a quick three for you. Okay. I'm very excited for these because you're an amazing individual. Just from this, 30-plus minute conversation, I can already tell, I feel like these will be fun.
Oh, yeah.
What was the funniest moment or most memorable moment on the Echo set?
Oh man. The rabbit stick, throwing the rabbit stick. I got maybe 10 throws with Keith Campbell, who was my stunt coordinator on that, teaching me how to throw this rabbit stick. So I got 10 throws off to the side, and then they were like, we're going to do it. And I said,
oh, goodness.
So the first 2 throws went really well. I actually almost hit it, and it was oh, perfect, great, awesome. The third throw, I don't know what happened. I don't know if mid-throw I just forgot what I was doing, but I threw it and I almost hit the Disney rep who was on set that day. And I was like, I'm so sorry.
Oh my goodness.
They were like, and they jumped and I went, I'm really okay. Are we done with that?
Oh boy!
Don't pardon me. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Mickey's back in the place going, oh boy, she's dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. So that was really you, though. That's awesome. I was like, was it like CGI? Did you go like this and then they did the thing CGI or whatever? That was really you.
That was really me. I was me. I was throwing it. I was doing a lot of things.
Wow.
Whether it flew the right way or not, neither here nor there. That's a different.
You're even more badass now. That's awesome. I love that. Okay. These last 2, we're going to get deep. I know which one he's going to ask you, so I'm going to ask you this one. And here we come with that. Okay. Ooh, let's contemplate and think. If you could go back in time and tell your 10-year-old self something, what would you say to her?
Oh my gosh. I'd say you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You're an overthinker, kid. You really need to calm down. You're an overthinker, but you are going to be just fine.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, she needed to know that she was going to be so fine, just so fine.
Good. That's good advice.
Letting go. I feel like a lot of things, just to be able to have that release and to be able to just actually breathe. Turn the weight into air. Just let
turn
it
your
all
weight
go.
into wings and just fly away.
Fly away.
There you go.
Let it happen. And I mean, it transitions into the final question. So far, are you happy with your career?
Absolutely. You set a timeline in your head for where you want to be at a certain age, because this industry tells you that, at a certain age, you're elderly, you're geriatric already, and no one's going to cast you as a teenager. You're going to go from teenager to grandma really quickly. And it really freaks you out. But I'm so thankful for how my career has progressed and where it's gone and where it's going. And I couldn't have done any of that without my parents and my family also telling me, like, hey, relax. All of it's out of your control. You have control over one thing. After you say your last line, you can't do anything else. It's all up to those people. So I'm so thankful for where I am, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
Oh my goodness.
Aw.
Listen, I got news for you too. When the inevitable age out of stuff starts to happen, which I don't know, has anybody seen Ellen Bernstein on Law and Order? For Christ's sake, she's still going. It's fine. The aging out thing.
True.
But I got to tell you, just through this conversation and seeing the passion in your eyes and the way you light up when you talk about things, and you're a very animated kind of behind. I see a huge career behind the camera for you. I really do. I think you would be a phenomenal director. You get the importance of being on set. You get the importance of actors communicating with below the line people, and plus you could just tell that you're a storyteller. The way you described how everything was in your life and how it was on set and how you approach things, you're a storyteller. So I think you're going to be just fine whenever you decide to not be in front of the camera. You're going to be okay. I'm just telling you right now. This has
Ginny,
been.
I could definitely do that. The plan is I've got a plan in my head for what my first feature would be, but we'll see.
I love that. See, already thinking ahead. Listen, you are an absolute gem. We could not thank you more for coming on and talking to us. This has just been an outstanding conversation, and man, wow, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. It's been so fun and I felt so comfortable, which is kind of, sometimes you feel like you have to be here with everything, but I felt so comfortable. Like I've known you guys forever.
That means everything
Well, good.
to us.
That's good. Yeah,
it really does.
We're like, loosey goosey, just letting it all. Yeah, that's what we're here for, just to make it a safe environment to where like we bring people on to give you a platform. Like we're not a TMZ type of thing. We just want you to have a space where people can get to know you more and get that, connectability to where, we can help lift you up, because everybody who we've come across with the podcast has been amazing. But it's all about social media now. So where can people find you and follow you?
I'm an old lady. I'm just on Instagram. Just my name, Dannie McCallum. That's it.
All right, well,
after that,
that's easy enough,
we'll direct
right?
everybody. Yeah,
that's
we'll
right.
Direct everybody your way. Everybody, be sure to watch Echo right now on Disney Plus. All episodes are available. And Dannie, thank you again so much. You are amazing. And open invite. Anytime you want to come back on, please feel free.
Oh.
We have a mental health podcast as well, if you want to come on there and dive deep into your feelings, because I know we do every bi-weekly.
Well, I've had so much to process now that I found out I'm a white guy. I mean, I've been living my life as a scam the whole time, Logan. Thanks for clearing it. Just what are we doing? Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Well, listen, take care. Have a great rest of the evening. And like Logan said, we'll keep in touch and open invite and just continued success. I think you're just going to be huge, and we could not be more happy for you.
Oh, thank you guys so much. Thank you so much. And everything, all good things to you, all good vibes. Everything you deserve is coming your way.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes. Listen, take care, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right. See you later.
Bye. Oh boy,
What?
talk about a great conversation, man. Like I said, or like we've said, since the beginning of 2024, our interviews have been top notch.
Oh my gosh! And the one theme that's running through all of these guests is that infectious smile and just that passion and enthusiasm that they have. If there was ever a way to start off a year inspiring people, these guests have been amazing. She was just another one that was just full of energy and life. I mean, what a great interview! What a great interview!
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. Like we said, be sure to check out Echo on Disney Plus. All available episodes are up now. They dropped all of those. That was one of the first ever Marvel shows that have done that. So that's really cool. And she plays a pivotal role, guys. It plays a pivotal role. So be sure to check it out. But thank you again, Dannie, for coming on the show. All right, now it is time for the top 5 segment, man. And this one is interesting. If you listened to last week's show, you should know what this week's top 5 is. This week, it is modern day films that we think will become classics, which was very freaking difficult to do. Like, I don't know about you, but man, oh man, like I had to really do some research, and then I had to think about different genres, and then I had to think about what I felt like had the most rewatchability, if that's even a word. Well, it is now. But all of these different things. So yeah, this one was like maybe the most difficult that I've ever done.
Yeah, and it's I too tried to like, okay, let me pick different genres because I don't want to be stuck all in one kind of a thing or whatever. That was hard in itself. And then, I mean, this top five I think was so difficult because this is probably the top five that is basically our opinions. I mean,
Yeah,
there's no
for sure.
fact base, there's no box office number kind of there's no reasoning behind the picks other than this is our opinion. And so that made it even more difficult because it's like, how many people will agree or not agree with this? So these are going to be fun.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, number five for me goes to the one and only Let It Go, as in Frozen. I think this one is destined to be a classic further down the line because if you think about all the historical Disney movies, specifically in the last 20th century, I think it has the same love, the same admiration as like Lion King. Frozen and the Frozen franchise is huge. And so I definitely believe that further down the line, I'm going to be showing this to my children. And that's what played into it a lot too, to be able to be like, okay, what movies am I going to be talking about 30 years from now that I can show to the young people if they don't know about it? And they might know about it. And so if they do know about it, they will definitely be considered classics. But I feel like Frozen, it has that connectability, it has all the great music, and it has the love story that ends up not being about, typical romance. It's the love story about family and a sisterhood.
Yeah.
And to be able to have that bond that you don't necessarily need with an outside person. So yeah, I definitely think Frozen is on that list because I think it's historic, man. I think what they were able to do and the impact they were able to make with the younger generation of females specifically, I think will span from generations to come. So yeah, number five for me, Frozen, the original.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I think, yeah, as you guys know, last week on classics, already determined classics, I had Snow White. I think that, every generation or so, Disney will make a film that will be a classic because it resonates. It's over generations of time. And I think that's definitely one of them. It sparks conversations all the time. I remember how there was this big controversy about whether Tarzan was their brother. You remember all that? That was just so crazy. But anytime that you can make a film that has that type of an interaction and that spawns those type of conversations, you're making a classic because somebody's always going to find it relevant and talk about it. My number five, nobody's talking about it because there's no talking. I picked number five for me, A Quiet Place. I think this one is destined to become a classic because every generation has a classic horror film. And this one is so uniquely different, right? And you guys know, if you listen to the show or if you listen to me on my social media and stuff, I am a hardcore dialogue guy. I love brilliant dialogue. I like films that can carry dialogue, and this is literally no talking. Yet this film had me riveted from start to finish. And I was so locked in. I was so compelled by the script, by the acting, by the direction, everything about this film. And they did it without saying a word. And for me, that's an instant classic. I think this thing will wholeheartedly, I think people down the line, film critics, fans, everybody will agree and determine, bam, this is one. Strictly for that reason. To have a film completely so terrifying where there's really nothing, it's just face, it's expression. It's so brilliant. It's so brilliant. I remember everybody coming out of that theater going, holy shit. Like, because you can't help but marvel in the acting prowess of every single member of that cast because it was all face. It was all just pure expression trying to convey what was happening in that film. And holy shit, it was just, yeah, A Quiet Place. Destined to become a classic. Not just a horror classic, but a film classic overall. I think everything about it, master class in how to direct a film with no dialogue. Quiet Place.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Most definitely. Number 4 for me goes to Devil Wears Prada. Now, the reason I think this is destined to be a classic because I think this specific film is my generation's Dirty Dancing, which, by the way, didn't age well, and I will go down always saying it didn't age well. But Devil Wears Prada, I feel like, is this generation's Dirty Dancing and going to be a classic for all audiences across the world because it shows you that, yes, maybe sometimes, especially at the beginning of adulthood, you feel like you're supposed to be checking all the boxes, right? You're supposed to be following people's orders or even following people's footsteps. But then somewhere along the lines, as you're learning to be yourself and learning to be an adult, you're like, I don't need to do this anymore. You become your own best version of yourself. And I feel like what the script and what the characters and the actors were able to do in this film were show you that you don't have to be, you know, following in other people's footsteps. You don't have to be a reincarnation of your parents. You don't have to, follow the assembly line that was put forth in front of you. So I think that's very important for every generation, specifically when you're growing up in high school, to watch this film to where you're like, okay, maybe at the beginning I am going to follow my P's and my Q's and stick very straight, but then it shows you that that's not the best way to do it. You have to try things. You have to go out and do things and live with different cultures and to be able to move states. Because how many people do we know just in our lives who live still where they grew up?
Yeah.
To be able to experience a little thing. There's not a problem with living where you grew up, but at least go spend time other places. Like go to live in different states, go experience different cultures. And if you want to go home, go home. That's completely fine. That is your choice. But to be able to experience the different things, I feel like is so important to where, you don't have to follow the mold. And I think that's the beautiful thing. So yeah, number 4 for me, Devil Wears Prada, because I think it's a great example of finding yourself and becoming who you are and who you want to be and changing whenever you want because it's your life. And at the end of the day, you're the only one who can decide what's right and what's wrong for your life.
Good. Yeah, it's so freaking hilarious because it plays directly into my number 4 for the same reasons. My number 4 is a sequel to a classic, one that has been deemed a classic, Top Gun. And the whole storyline behind Top Gun is Maverick trying to get out of the shadow of his legendary father, who was a fighter pilot, and his Top Gun instructor flew with his dad. And it's about doing your own path and becoming a rebel and trying to. He's basically had a troubled life because he's always been in the shadow of his father's legend, and he's trying to get out of it. Well, my number 4 is Top Gun Maverick, because it continues the storyline, and now it's Goose's son who is trying to get out of the shadow of Maverick and Goose and trying to be his own man and start his own story and be who he's destined to be. And it's that same type thing. It's about you don't have to live up to the expectations of your parents. You don't have to follow the same path as your parents. You are you, and you've got to do it your way. And I think that both the Top Gun movies, and specifically Top Gun Maverick, show that path and show that it's not always easy, but it's the right thing to do, that you have to get out there, you have to experience it, you have to live your own life. And I think that it does it really well. And I also think it's destined to become a classic because, in my opinion, it's one of the rare times, because it doesn't happen very often, where the sequel capitalizes on all the magic of the original and expands on it and makes it a better film than the original. And in my opinion, Top Gun Maverick is better than the original, and I loved the original. It's a great film. And I was hesitant. I said, oh man, they're doing another one finally after all these years. I don't think this is going to be good. And then it was better than the original. So I think it's fair to say it has to be deemed a classic because the original is considered a classic. And how do you not do a film that's better than the original and make it a classic? So it's I like you. I like the storyline. I like what the message tries to tell about family and making your own path in life and doing what you got to do. And yet also capturing all of the magic and just expanding upon the universe of. And I'm fingers crossed they don't fuck it up with 3. Sometimes you go too far. Sometimes you never know. So sometimes, we'll see. We'll see.
But I agree. I think the sequel is better than the original. I think a lot of movies in the 80s, and I mean, I blame Terminator, but I feel like a lot of movies in the 80s were like looking for that one historical punch line, like I'll be back. Yeah, you can be my wingman anytime. Like, that type of thing. And I mean, not to take anything away from these great classic films, but I just feel like they lean too heavily on that. And then Top Gun Maverick, there's a beautiful story. But yeah, completely agree with everything you just said. Number 3 for me, and y'all just met me at a very strange time in my life. And I'm talking about Fight Club. Now, that movie is absolutely freaking wild. I mean, it's probably already deemed a classic. I'm not even going to lie. But I mean, I had to throw it on there because it's one of my favorites of all time. Like, Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, to be able to talk about being schizophrenic and to be able to, multi-personality disorders, and like this stuff happens all the time, like, and not a lot of people talk about it, to where, like, people feel like they fall asleep and then a whole different person takes over to where they do different things, but then when the other person wakes up, they're in a completely different spot, different position. Like, they could even be in jail because some wild shit, maybe they blew up a whole building, kind of like Fight Club. But I feel like the way that they were able to, because I believe it was David Fincher, I think. But yeah, I think, what they were able to do in Fight Club was brilliant because, to basically start a whole cult while you're like in psychosis or whatever. Like, I mean, I feel like that was, just such a different type of storyline, and it makes you what am I doing when I'm asleep? Am I actually asleep? Am my body doing random things? Like, I don't know. It just makes you question a whole bunch of different things, specifically about your mental well-being, that I feel like it starts a conversation. And, we love films that start a conversation. But yeah, number 3 for me, Fight Club, because it's one of the all-time greats, to be honest. So,
without doubt. Without doubt. You're exactly right. It's one of the first films that I can remember that's shown a huge spotlight on mental health. And you were, there's no way you weren't talking about mental health and schizophrenia after walking out of seeing that movie. You were. There was no way. It's one of those things that we always talk about, like you said, how to use your art to start a conversation about things that are uncomfortable. And that's how you do it. And it was brilliantly done. And I mean, come on, the performances in that film. I mean, it was so well done. I guarantee you the vast majority of that movie had no idea that it was a schizophrenic version of the same person. I guarantee you. It was just brilliant. And when you got the oh shit moment, you're like, what? I'm just so well done. And I mean, come on, how can any film that has Bitch Tit Bob not be a classic? That's all I'm saying. Meatloaf, man. You gotta love Meatloaf. God rest him. My number 3, I put this on here because... well, not because of the reasons you think. Not because I'm a huge Hugh Jackman fan. Not because I'm a huge Wolverine fan. Not because I'm a huge X-Men fan. Any of that stuff. I'm putting this one on it because I think James Mangold set the bar and said, guess what, boys and girls? You can make a film that's about a superhero that is not a superhero film. This was a flat-out drama film about family, about relationships, about falling on hard times, about overcoming those hard times. There was grit, there was despair, there was like so much. This was a full-on dramatic film about family, and it happened to be a superhero movie. It happened to have Wolverine in it, and the way he was able to pull that off was absolutely brilliant. And how it did not win an Oscar, I do not know, but it did set the bar for anybody who thinks that comic book movies are formulaic, or that superhero movies all fall into the same category, or that you can't have a real, I don't know, story or a real dialogue in these movies. Well, Mangold proved them all wrong with Logan. It was anything but a generic superhero movie. It wasn't full of all-on action. It had some, but it wasn't about blowing shit up or fighting the big baddie. The big baddie was their past, was dealing with coming to terms with who they were and where they came from and where they are now. And that was the big baddie. And I just thought it was brilliant. So anybody that goes back, if you're a film person, a cinephile, and you like story, and you like direction and cinematography and acting and all of the things that make a film great, Logan is a great film that I think people are going to look back on one day and go, yeah, that's a classic. That's a classic story being told. And my hope is that people down in future generations watch it and don't even realize that it's a comic book movie. I'm hoping that they just go, oh, what's this Logan thing with Hugh Jackman? And they watch it and go, oh, wow. And then, they're not familiar with that it's a superhero. That's my hope. And my number 3, Logan.
I love it, man. Completely agree. Completely agree. Well, number 2 for me goes to Coda. Man. Oh, man. If y'all haven't seen Coda, where have you been? I just... won Best Picture a couple years ago at Apple TV Plus, and it really shows the story of, being the outsider in a family of disabled people, because everyone in her family is deaf, and she is the only able to hear person, not hearing impaired. So to be able to be a part of that, because that situation I feel like happens more often than people even realize. Like, to where everyone leans on her to be this specific person. And we all have that member in our family that we feel like is the rock, is the cornerstone that a lot of people put a lot of the pressure on. So it gives you a different perspective to think about, okay, maybe I need to alleviate some of this. Maybe I need to not put all this pressure on that one person. Or if that person is you, maybe you need to not let them put that pressure on you. It's those different type of things. And I feel like this film does an amazing job at that. Beautiful film. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Watch it at least once. And I think, as a filmmaker, this is going to be an instant classic for me, because I am going to be bringing this up all the time, and I am going to watch this film at least once a year. But yeah, number 2 for me is Coda.
I can't argue anything you just said. I agree with absolutely everything. It should be a classic. I hope it is a classic, and it's a brilliant film from start to finish. I think everything you said is spot on. My number 2, it's an Oscar contender this year. And it is my sincerest hope that it does become, down the line, many generations from now, a classic, because it deserves to be so. I am talking about The Holdovers. The Holdovers is a brilliant character study. It is a stark look at the human psyche and humanity and human life in general. The holdovers are basically all the black sheeps of their families, the black sheeps of the dynamic and of the society that they live in. And that's why they're the holdovers, because nobody really wanted them, or they had no real place to go during the holiday break of school. And while all of the characters, the professor, the cook, and the student, come from vastly different backgrounds and have very different reasons as to why they're the black sheep, you find in this character study as you're watching it that it does the perfect job of saying we're all so much more alike than we are different. And you don't know somebody's story until you talk, until you get to know them and find out where they come from and why they're the way they are. What have they been through? Where have they been? Where are they going? What are they trying to be? This movie does such a brilliant job of showing this in these characters. And you think no way these people are anywhere near each other, but by the end of the movie, they're like this, and they realize it's because there's so much more in common with each other, and their back lives are so much more intertwined than even they thought possible. And it's a really beautiful look at humanity. And I think it also does a very good job of saying, you know what? No matter what your story is, no matter where you've come from, no matter your current situation, you are good enough. It's okay to just be you. It doesn't matter if people look down upon you. It doesn't matter if people don't get your story or don't understand. It is okay to be you, and you are good enough. And I think this film does a brilliant job of saying that and showing that, and the performances are phenomenal. And that is why I think that The Holdovers will become a classic, because people are going to look back at it and go, that's life. And that's where we came from. And that I really believe it's going to be a classic.
For sure, man, for sure. Well, we're super excited about both of our number ones, and we'll try to get through them quickly. I know, like, they really coincide hand in hand.
They do.
Because, I mean, this past summer was absolutely a monster for the box office. And number one for me goes to Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie's Barbie. I think Barbie is going to be a classic in years to come because of the instant success that it had, because of obviously the popularity with the toys. And I feel like, it's a very woman empowerment film. And to be able to continue that positivity and able to continue lifting up women, lifting up other women is so important. Because, a lot of the stereotypes is women cut down other women. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the narrative needs to be changed on that. And I feel like this movie is a great step forward for that. So, yeah, number one for me, Barbie.
Well, there you go. And my number one is the second half of Barbenheimer, Oppenheimer. Listen, we've talked about this film every week in our industry news since it debuted, and it's now streaming on Peacock. I don't have a whole lot of things to say about this other than I have now put it at my list, the top of my list of all-time favorite movies. I think it is going to become many people's all-time favorite movie, surpassing The Godfather, surpassing so many others, Gone with the Wind and everything. This is a once-in-a-generation, 100-year, whatever you want to call, movie. It's brilliant filmmaking from top to bottom. It is a stark look at the reality of the world that we live in and where we came from, and unfortunately still are. It's a diagnosis and of craziness of where we live in, and it's brilliant. There's no reason that I can think of why this film would not become a classic. It is a master class in filmmaking and in storytelling. And it's true. It's history. It happened. Even more so why. It's one of those movies where you just have to go, holy shit. So my number one, Oppenheimer, it's the best film of all time, in my opinion. So of course I had to put it, it's going to be a classic. That's,
Well, and it's always a difference too between our favorite movies and then what we think are the best movies. So
yes.
Maybe one day we should have like a dueling list on that too. Best movies of all time and our favorite movies of all time. But yeah, I think Oppenheimer goes down with Titanic's, Godfather, Shawshank. All of these different ones that are amazing.
Generational.
Yeah,
once,
guys.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But that is our top 5 this week, modern day films that we think will become classics. We want to know, what is your modern day film that you think will become a classic? Because there's so many out there. I mean, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was in mine, the original, because classic as far as like animation style. And there's so many honorable mentions that I wish we had more time for. But man, oh man, please be sure to let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section and on X and on threads at JLoganAustin and at CrazyAntCEO.
Yes.
All right, now heading over to the box office recap. Argyle came in at number 1 with $6.2 million. Number 2 was Lisa Frankenstein with $3.7 million. Number 3 was The Beekeeper with $3.4 million. Number 4 was Wonka with $3 million. Number 5 was Migration with $2.9 million. Now, new movies coming out this week are Bob Marley, One Love, Madam Web, Bleeding Love, Altered Reality, and Land of the Bad. And all of those movies I just listed above are the movies you can still go see.
Exactly.
And I'm very excited about it because I already bought my tickets for Sunday and Monday. And before our next show, I will be seeing Bob Marley, One Love, and Madam Web.
Ditto.
Does Madam Web get all of the hate that it's been getting? Does it deserve all of it? Well, I'll be sure to let you know.
I saw one tweet from somebody who said, all I know after walking out of this film is that Warner Brothers needs to release Batgirl because it couldn't possibly be as bad as what I just watched. I was like, ouch. I am also going to see both of them over the weekend, and I am super excited. And I also think they're your number 1 and number 2 for next week's box office. Bob Marley number 1, Madam Web number 2. If from what I'm seeing on their weekdays, I think when we say next weekend, that's going to be your number 1 and number 2. Bob Marley and Madam Web. We'll see, but
we'll see. Well, heading over to the IMDbPro's top trending segment. Top trending movie is True Detective. Our top trending movie is Argyle.
Yes.
The top trending TV show is True Detective. Sorry, our producers switched those up a little bit. The top trending star is Maya Erskine. So, yes, all good things, man. All good things. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for getting crazy with us on episode 250. We got to thank our guest one more time, Dannie McCallum, for coming on the show and getting a little crazy with us. Be sure to follow her on Instagram at Dannie McCallum, and be sure to check out Echo on Disney Plus right now. All episodes available.
Yes.
And of course, you guys know you can follow us on the company and podcast accounts at ITCAFpodcast and at Crazy Ant Media. And you can follow us both personally on social media at JLoganAustin and
Crazy Ant CEO.
That's right, man. That's right. And subscribe to this podcast anywhere you listen to your podcast. Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Stitcher, and so much more. If you're watching this video on YouTube, we appreciate you. Be sure to hit that like button on the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell for all the latest and greatest notifications coming out of Crazy Ant Media. And, of course, be sure to visit our website, www.crazyantmedia.com, where you can start rocking the latest and greatest Crazy Ant Media gear. We have so much, man, so much available for you right now. And you have to follow us to know when the promotional sales are. But, man, oh, man, it's always a great time to be able to sit back and reflect on where we are and where we have come from.
Yes.
Because, I'm going to be putting some pictures of, those ones I sent in our group chat of the evolution of the podcast. And it's funny to look at. It really is.
It really is. But, it's also a testament to just our passion, our dedication, that, and the joy that we have in doing this thing. And, you and I talked about it off air just real briefly, how it's helped us as filmmakers be better filmmakers, and how it helps us when we're on set and different things by doing this show, and the connections that we've made and learning to deal with people and overcome obstacles and fix things on the fly. It's an amazing experience, not only from the show standpoint, but from what it's taught us in life and how to get through things. It's incredible, man. It's incredible. And I can't think of anybody else that I would rather be doing it with than you. I think it's just every time we get together every week and do this thing, it's my favorite day. It's when we could just be ourselves and talk about what we love and just do it. And what a ride, my man. I am so looking forward to the next 250 in some capacity. Maybe we're not hosting. Maybe we're just behind the scenes. I don't know. But I'm hoping for a long, long time for this show to continue, because it's awesome for all the up-and-comers out there. And I'm just proud of it, man. I couldn't be more proud of it.
Exactly. Me too, man. Me too. And for 250 episodes, we honor and love the one, the only
Oprah!